We have an epidemic in today's day and age, and that epidemic would be lying. Lying is a big part of life for a lot of people, mostly on social media, and 27-year-old Taylor Parker is no exception. Taylor would lie and say that she was pregnant to keep her relationship from falling apart. And when she told this lie, she was all in, and coming clean was never an option. So when Taylor's fake due date came around, she was out of time. But no one could have guessed the horrors to come. Being all out of options and not willing to come clean, Taylor decided to attack and kill her pregnant friend, followed by then cutting the 35-week-old baby out of her friend's body. So just how far will someone go to protect their lie? Well, we are about to find out. This is the case of Taylor Parker. What's going on, guys? Welcome to Wicked and Wild, where we tell all types of true crime, whether solved or unsolved, terrifying and tragic, or just plain wicked and wild. I'm your host, Tyler, here to give you exactly what you came for. And with that being said, let's get right into it. Taylor Parker's story, for us, begins when she was at the age of 27 and in the county of Titus in the great state of Texas. But to find out how she got to this point, we need to tell you a little bit about her background. Taylor Parker's marriage with her first husband, Tommy Casey, yielded 2 children. After her second child's birth, Taylor had a tubal ligation and a medically necessary hysterectomy, which ultimately rendered her unable to conceive. The marriage didn't last and the couple ultimately decided to split. After divorcing Casey, Taylor married a man named Hunter Parker. Hunter wanted children of his own, but Taylor never admitted that she was infertile until after they had gotten married. Now, understandably devastated, Hunter would obviously feel betrayed after this, and serious problems in their relationship would be the result. Taylor always had a habit of lying, but this is where Taylor's lies would begin to pile up. And not only did she struggle to continue the lies she had already told, but her lies would become bigger and more outlandish. Taylor would decide to fake medical problems like having fake seizures and fake miscarriages to keep their relationship together. After faking problem after problem and eventually running out of options, Taylor decided to turn to surrogates, even offering 2 of her own friends $100,000 each to act as surrogates, but both declined her offer. She even tried to convince Hunter to get a loan to pay for a surrogate, but not before retracting her statement and claiming her grandmother will give them the money in cash. This large amount of cash would, according to Taylor, be delivered by a mysterious man named Tim Hightower. And I can only imagine what Hunter's face looked like when his then wife was trying to tell him that a Mr. Hightower was going to deliver this big sack of cash from her grandmother. Hunter would receive a few texts from a number who claimed to be this Tim Hightower, including a picture showing a big duffel bag stuffed with money. On the day Taylor said the money would be delivered, what do you know? There was a problem. Taylor would tell her husband that Hightower had gotten into a real bad accident on the way to deliver the money, and that the first responders had stolen it all. Shockingly, Hunter didn't believe her, and at this point was done with her lies and her problems. In the end, Taylor's second marriage would fail, with Taylor reportedly telling people that she and Hunter had actually hired a surrogate and that everything was going well, but then Hunter had cheated on her with the woman. And so, the newly separated couple would divorce in April of 2019. And just several weeks later, Taylor started dating a new man named Wade Griffin. Now, almost immediately, friends and family of Wade could tell that he wasn't interested in Taylor and that the relationship wouldn't last long. Taylor initially claimed that she was actually an heiress capable of purchasing a $4.5 million walnut farm for themselves. Obviously, this was a lie, and she couldn't keep up the lie for long. So when the real estate deal began falling apart in 2019, she all of a sudden revealed she was pregnant. Now, I'm sure you've already guessed that Taylor never told Wade that she was infertile. And you'd be right. Taylor's plan worked though. Wade stuck by her after learning about the pregnancy. Taylor faked urine tests and used sonogram images from her earlier pregnancies to prove she was expecting, even posting any and all updates to her social media. Now, in December of 2019, Taylor's first ex-husband found out about Taylor's so-called pregnancy and reached out to Wade's brother and mother to warn them about Taylor's lies. But Wade didn't listen to them. After all, Taylor was convincing. Of course, a relationship built on lies is a toxic relationship, and Wade's family saw it as just that, toxic. And now, knowing for a fact that Taylor wasn't pregnant and she was a compulsive liar, Wade's family just sat back and let it play out, figuring that she would fake a miscarriage and the relationship would just come to an end. Unfortunately, this was going to be one hell of a long ride, and no one on earth could have seen what was to come. In August of 2020, Taylor knew she had to continue her lie, and time was running out. And so she went ahead and ordered a baby belly, and just to be safe, more fake sonograms. Taylor even had a fake gender reveal party, posting fake pictures on social media, announcing they were having a baby girl. Taylor would start to research any and everything that had to do with pregnancies around this time, such as where pregnant women would gather, videos of C-sections, and many other things. Taylor, being Taylor, went to a clinic in Paris, Texas for a scheduled sonogram, but started crying profusely when she was called in. Taylor said she needed to reschedule because her husband was in the military and he had just passed away, and that her mother had abandoned her. Workers later took notice that Taylor had actually never left the clinic, but stayed outside on a bench in the parking lot, looking up the license plates numbers of mothers-to-be that were walking in. Taylor was up to no good. She realized that her lie truly was running out of time, and that she had to do something. Of course, coming clean about the entire thing was not an option for an ultimate liar like herself. And so she thought of, in her mind, the next best thing, to take someone else's baby. And Taylor had the perfect person in mind. Early in October 2020, while posting constantly on social media about her so-called pregnancy, Taylor had reconnected and bonded with another pregnant woman, Reagan Hancock, who had hired Taylor to be the photographer when Reagan married her husband in early 2019. Taylor had told everyone at this point that she was due to be induced on October 6th, and Taylor was out of time. On October 5th, a fire had mysteriously started at Wade's house, where Taylor also stayed, which did enough damage to knock out the plumbing and electricity, but was extinguished before any further damage. The next day, on October 6th, was Taylor's big day. And if you haven't guessed it, Taylor was the one who started the fire in a strange attempt to somehow delay the inducing. But the appointment was still on. Now, extremely desperate, and knowing she can't go to the clinic, someone conveniently called in a bomb threat early in the morning, causing the clinic to evacuate and successfully delaying her inducing. And it definitely wasn't Taylor. With nothing else to think of to delay her inducing any further, Taylor officially set into motion her plan to show up with a real-life baby. And this would be done in the most evil, unthinkable way ever. It was the very early morning hours of October 9th, and Taylor was home watching videos of C-sections of babies at 35 weeks old. Why? Well, that's because 35 weeks is where Reagan's pregnancy was at this time. And after watching hours of these C-section videos, Taylor felt like she was ready to go and get a baby of her own. Except this wouldn't be her own. Taylor made her way over to Reagan's house in New Boston, Texas. Taylor, immediately after getting into the house, began her vicious attack on Reagan. Using a hammer and a knife, Taylor began to strike and stab Reagan over 100 times, 39 of which being to Reagan's head. As if this wasn't enough, she even grabbed a jar of pink sand from Reagan's wedding to continue beating over Reagan's head. Reagan fought hard for her life, having many defensive wounds to her hands and arms, with one finger even almost being completely cut off. But unfortunately, it wouldn't be enough. After Taylor finished beating Reagan and was sure she was dead, she began the real work she came to do. Using a scalpel she brought with her and the knowledge she gained that morning from a couple hours of C-section videos, she cut Reagan from one end of her hip to the other, removing both her uterus and the 35-week-old baby. Now, after taking her friend's life and cutting the baby from her dead body to cover up her string of lies, Taylor thought it was necessary to take the scalpel that she had just used and plunge it into Reagan's neck before leaving. To make matters even worse, if that's at all possible, Reagan's 3-year-old daughter was home at the time of her murder. And unfortunately, it was later revealed the 3-year-old did witness the crime, and I'm sure will haunt that poor girl for the rest of her life. Taylor, covered in blood and holding a newborn infant, jumped in her car and sped off. Reagan's husband, who was at work, started receiving very strange texts from Reagan's phone that morning at around 8:30. He continuously tried calling and texting, but still no response. Starting to get seriously worried, he began to call neighbors and others that were physically close to Reagan. At about an hour later, at 9:30 in the morning, he received a Facebook message from a neighbor saying that the dog that he and Reagan owned had escaped and was outside. And at that point, he knew that something was wrong. Around that same exact time in DeKalb, Texas, approximately 9:37, a state trooper observed a vehicle speeding, along with driving erratically, and had to pull the car over. After walking up to the window, the officer was shocked to find a woman, later identified as Taylor, covered in blood with what appeared to be a newborn infant, and the infant wasn't breathing. Taylor told the officer she had just given birth on the side of the road and immediately started performing CPR on the infant until they were eventually both transported by LifeNet to a hospital in Idabel, Oklahoma. While Taylor and the infant made their way to the hospital, Reagan's husband had called Reagan's mother to go and check on her to make sure that everything was really okay. And that's when, at around 10:18 that morning, police received a terrifying call from Reagan's mother, who was screaming and crying while commenting about the extent of blood throughout the house. Officers arrived quickly and walked in to see Reagan's body in the living room facing down and completely covered in blood, just like the rest of the house. When Reagan's mother informed them that Reagan was 35 weeks pregnant, police requested EMS to come and check the status of the baby. But when EMS turned Reagan over, that's when they were horrified to find the laceration from hip to hip. And after looking closer, to their even more extreme horror, there was no baby to be found. Around this same time, back at the hospital, doctors unfortunately had to pull life support off the infant due to the baby being deprived of oxygen for so long before actually making it to the hospital. But this wasn't the only problem that doctors were having. When tests were run on Taylor, it was discovered that she didn't have a uterus or a cervix, and therefore wasn't able to get pregnant. But Taylor was insisting that she did just give birth on the side of the road. That's when blood tests would also confirm there were no pregnancy hormones in Taylor, and therefore definitely did not and could not give birth. It didn't take long before cops at both scenes made the connection between the two situations. That's when police confronted Taylor with the evidence, and at first, she tried to lie and say that Reagan had actually started the fight by trying to force Taylor to stay at the house when she tried to leave, and actually pushed Taylor to the ground. She continued to say that her and Reagan got into a seriously nasty fight, and that's when Reagan realized that there was too much damage to her done to survive, and so she apparently told Taylor to cut out and save the baby. And Taylor, being the great friend that she is, obliged and cut out the baby and attempted to bring it to the hospital as an act of kindness. Yeah, sure. Obviously, this story wasn't believed by anybody, including the officers, and Taylor was taken into custody that very day. Taylor was charged with capital murder for both Reagan and Reagan's infant, with the prosecution seeking the death penalty due to the severity of how heinous this crime truly was. It was uncovered that Taylor didn't cause all of this damage and hurt because she herself wanted a baby. No. All of this damage was to keep her boyfriend. And if the families and friends of Reagan didn't already go through enough, Taylor decided to plead not guilty. She is the true definition of garbage. And if there was any true justice in our legal system, I think we all know what should actually happen to Taylor. During the trial, she actually tried to frame another inmate for the murders by conspiring with other inmates to fake confession letters and find fake witnesses. This, of course, was uncovered and made Taylor look exactly like the person she is. Now, on the day of sentencing, it took less than 1 hour for the jury to convict and sentence Taylor Parker to death for both capital murders. Taylor got exactly what she deserves, and to be honest, in my opinion, she actually got better than what she deserves. Now, I've covered some pretty horrendous cases on this channel, and a lot of lives being lost in some videos and just, really heinous acts to a single person on other videos. But this, so far, is the worst case that I've covered. I mean, this was just beyond evil, disgusting, and come on. I'd really like to upload a lot more frequent than I do now. So if you guys could help us out, help the channel out, and like the videos, subscribe, even comment. You guys can comment anything. It could be anything, a letter, a word, it doesn't matter. I just want to be able to do this more, cover more cases, upload more frequent, and yeah, just build a bigger, better, wicked and wild community. So let me know what you guys think of this case. This one was a rough one, and truly my condolences go out to Reagan's husband, mother, especially the daughter. I can't even imagine going through what they went through. And so, again, guys, let me know what you thought of the case. Comment, like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next one.